Now, the rest of the story.
Welcome back to the rest of the story. And we're in the field that I typically end up turning the camera on to talk to you guys. This is the same field that I got stuck with the 46 last year. This is the field that actually got hit the worst with grasshoppers. Grasshoppers are a definite issue this year. The landowners were down here and they're side by side, and they drove through the one field down here. I didn't spray for bugs, and they had the same opinion I did. I drove through it with the four-wheeler last night, and the grasshoppers were so bad you actually really couldn't even stand to drive through it because it was just a literal cloud of grasshoppers just flying up over top of you. So that's unfortunate. You're pretty naive to think that that many bugs out in your hayfield isn't going to cost you some yield. I'm knocking this piece down at ground level, and it doesn't look like a whole lot's there, but to be completely honest, it looks a lot better than what it does standing there before you cut it. Ryan's over at the neighbor's place. Same thing. It's spotty, but I think a lot of the problem with that place is because it has spotty areas of reed canary that are coming back. I mean, it's sporadic, but it's enough that the grass, the rest of the grass that's there is probably pretty well comparable to this stuff as far as height goes. But then when you look at that reed canary, you think, well, geez, there's only decent cutting where that taller grass is until you actually get going in it. And that taller or that shorter stuff, granted, isn't very tall, but it is kind of thick to the point that, I mean, probably 1 foot to 8 inches tall on varying spots. And it's going to make something, because here we are cutting the second cut, the 1st of August. I would have preferred to have done it last week, but you know, 3 inches of rain kind of messed up that plan just a little bit. But granted, we're cutting material, we're cutting hay, grass, that I wasn't planning on making for another 6 to 7 weeks. I was just gonna let it grow, assuming, you know, it's gonna keep doing something, yada, yada, yada. Well, plans changed, and I came down here, albeit a week later than I really should have. I should have been down here when I was cutting the 40 acres that we interseeded, and if I would have went and walked through everything else at that point in time with the weather forecast we had last week, I'd be a week ahead cutting hay because I'd have cut everything last week. So it is what it is. They're calling for more rain in the upcoming week, which is great. They pushed it back out of this week a little bit. They were calling for rain Thursday. I think they pushed it back till next Tuesday, which is fine because the way it's looking, gonna cut everything today, tet it tomorrow. Gonna come down on Tuesday and see what some of this stuff looks like. If we can cut or bale some of it Tuesday, late Tuesday even, it's that much less we have to make Wednesday, Thursday, because the current schedule has baling hay Wednesday, Thursday. Now, as far as baling goes, if I can just drop in and run, we should be able to get this done in about a day and a half. I don't think, for the amount of ground that I got to go over, for how rough it is, that I'll be able to do it in a day. Because Ryan's got his 11 acres up home, and then we got 80 to 90 acres down at the valley that we're knocking over. It's not going to be as heavy. It's not going to be stopping and dumping as many bales out as it was with first cut. But this is money in the bank, because We're 7 weeks from when we made first crop. What I'm gonna do is come back in probably next weekend here, or in a week. By the time we get the bales off, come down, spray 25 gallons to the acre of 32% nitrogen on most of this farm. There's some spots that aren't going to be worth it, so I mean, why put the money down? I'll just cut it if anything comes back. That isn't a soil issue. That's a what kind of crop grasses that are currently their issue. So I really not much to say about it, but it's just adapting to the situation at hand, or the conditions at hand. Once I get done spraying it, they're calling for rain next week, so 1/4 inch of rain to get that nitrogen down into the roots, get all this grass that we're cutting today started up healthy again, get a bunch more rain on it, and let it grow for about 2 more weeks after I put the fertilizer down. Then I'm going to come back down with Radiate, probably an insecticide for the amount of bug pressure that I'm seeing right now, and probably a weed killer. The stuff up through here and the old pasture is behind me. You guys, everything over here is actually former pasture, and I've made a lot more of that than the landlords thought I'd be able to make. And a lot of the weed pressure isn't too bad through here. It's down at the actual bottom. There's weeds that were starting to become prominent when we came down to cut. So in my third cutting, I definitely don't want to have weeds in it. And what it's looking like, I've already hauled out 4 loads of hay. My intentions are, depending on how it sells, granted, by the time you guys see this, all this has gone on. I've probably had it sprayed by now. I want to say this correctly. I'd be willing to sell enough of first cut out of my storage shed if I can get a price I'm happy with, and then I would stack in all of the second cut that Ryan and I are cutting today, and I'll have this baled in time to know whether or not how much more I should have to sell out of the shed, because those bales are lighter, they were made right. It kind of pains me a little bit to sell or haul out hay in a shed that has been a non-issue. But if I can get this stuff made, same size, 60-inch bales, but get a little bit more weight on it, and the fact that it is a second cut bale, if I can get 100 bales of second cut shoved into that shed and hold that hay back and sell it as, this is, you know, second cut hay in January, it should get somebody's attention. So, especially if what first cut is going for right now. But it's just, a lot of it's just a balancing act, trying to decide what I want to do. I mean, I'm not naive enough, I mean, we all know better than to think that second cut is going to yield just as good as first cut did. First cut was just under 300 bales of the stuff that we're cutting today. We had about 300 bales of everything that is currently being cut. Excuse me. And adjust the seat a little bit. That helps. If I can come back in and see, I think we can see 100 bales off of all this. I think 100 bales is within reason. I think 150 50 would capture a lot of it. Because we do have that heavy stuff down at the bottom. Granted, it's not as heavy as it was for first cut. Keep that in mind. There's some more areas I was able to cut. There's also some areas that I wasn't able to cut and that I let go because it's still kind of light. Like there's some sporadic spots over here and over there that I didn't cut a second time, that I am going to just let it grow and do its thing. And I will come through and cut everything in September. The valley is gonna be the last stuff we cut again for the year. So everything else at home, the waterways, all the crop ground up at home, and Ryan's hay and all that. That's all gonna be done before we come down here and do this. The problem is, once again, becomes into a scheduling issue, because last year, I'm hoping it isn't just like last year, but last year we should have been cutting beans and we were finishing up hay. And the only person that was really giving me any grief about that was our agronomist. But she's just trying to make sure we get the most yield for our crops, obviously, but at the same time it's stressful too, knowing that you can only get so far into fall where you can cut and make a hay crop and still get it dry. And I don't really want to try to make any of this in October. Taking a sledgehammer to the arm, to the hand, sounds a lot more pleasant than trying to get dry hay in October. The hay preservative does its thing, but it can only do so much. And the hay preservative is a perk. Even for this stuff, I get it nice and dry. I'm still going to put the preservative on it, because even when the stuff that I do sell, that's actually seen as a perk, I was told, because if it's been treated, it shouldn't have any mold issues inside it, so you're looking at better quality feed. I say preservative, but there's still plenty of people that they think, oh my gosh, you're spraying a liquid onto your hay. That's just completely backwards to anything I've ever believed in. I get where you're coming from, I understand, but I have yet to get myself to a point where I have ever thought, to hell with this stuff, I'm not messing with it anymore. It's expensive, yes. $2,000 for a tote that, now that I'm doing 3 cuttings this year versus 2 cuttings, that tote probably isn't going to get me through the year. So either I'm going to go buy another tote, which the stuff will carry over to next year, which is probably going to be fine, because then I'll probably go buy another tote this fall or next year, tax deduction, whatever I decide to do. And you know what? I can sit here and describe why I do all this stuff, but to be completely honest, when it comes to farming and it comes to ag, if you want to get the most money for the ground you're covering, it largely boils down to you have to pay to play. Yes, it costs money to do a lot of this shit, but the years of my life where I've tried skimming by and not spending money and just crossing my fingers, and basically the only way I was really going to make money is if I had a perfect year, and let's face it, I haven't had a perfect year yet. It just boils down to is, if you want to succeed at farming, you really got to just be willing to put the money up there and do it. You see some people that are trying to farm with older equipment, burnt out equipment. They're always working on it, this, that. I've decided a long time ago that I do not want to farm with old, worn out equipment. And I am not talking about the people that want to farm with 40-20s. I'm talking about people that are trying to farm with the old putt-putts and just wrenching on equipment all winter just to get it back into shape so you can run it the next season, because by the time you're done with one season on it, it's rattled itself apart that you need to fix it up again. Just sounds absolutely terrible. Being a mechanic and going to school for mechanics and interning at the local dealership absolutely turned me away from wanting to ever turn wrenches consistently. I'll work on my own stuff. I mean, maintenance and general repairs, I'll do. But that deep, heart surgery equipment that machinery needs, I have absolutely no interest in doing it. The 4640, when it needed brake pads and all that shit, take it to the dealership, pay to have it done. They have all the stuff they need to do it. They would have it done back sooner than we would. And I guarantee you a lot less close calls of people getting hurt. As we'd be using the skid steer and the pallet tines and strapping it to the tires of the skid steer and all that shit to pull it off. It just, done enough of that stuff milking. We farmed with worn out junk equipment for the last 20 years we were milking. I didn't enjoy it. And it's kind of set my course going forward here. It's had a pretty strong impact on what I'm willing to do and how I'm willing to farm. Even as far as making hay. Yes, I want to have cattle around. It doesn't pay, if you talk to enough people, if you're honest to yourself, to have cattle 100%. Like, that's 100% of what you do. Or the cow-calf guys are losing their ass every year. I get it. I would rather raise the feed and sell the feed, even when it comes to hay. I would rather make hay, sit in air conditioning all day, and let the machinery do the work. I like having cattle. 20, 30, 40, 50 head, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But as far as me going to 100% of a livestock operation, I just don't see me doing it. Look at the guys out west, scrambling to find feed. There's some local guys. I was just told that there's a guy 15 miles away that he just pulled all of his cows off the pasture, his whole beef herd, because he's out of feed. The pasture's burned out. So they're already looking at buying hay. I'd rather be a supplier than a raiser or a grower. A raiser, not so much a grower, because I'm growing the crops, but my cows serve a purpose. I really don't want to put myself in a position where we have so many cattle around that our pastures can't handle the cattle that we have on hand. Or, I went off on more of a tangent than what I really needed to, or a lot of you really cared to hear, but it's the truth. I'd rather make this hay and sell the hay than try to feed it to a cow and then walk it off the farm. And then hope you're going to get paid a decent price for the cows. That's why I have bred cows. Breed the cows back. I'm not buying feeders. I'm not having to constantly put money into buying cattle to bring cattle home and try to spin them and make money doing that. Tried it. Didn't enjoy it. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. 1 out of 10 would not recommend. So we're just not set up for it. I've made more in the last 2 years than I've made since 2013 when I started farming. A lot of that is being young and stupid and not having as much guidance as maybe some people have. I learned a lot of stuff the hard way, and by hard way I mean with my checkbook. And it's peace of mind at the end of the day, at the end of the year, when you're not worried about whether or not you're going to be able to pay your loans back or pay your bills, is worth an awful lot. So that's why there's been equipment being bought around here, largely because of grain prices and what I was able to get it marketed for earlier this year, and then what I have it marketed for this fall and next summer, and even next fall already. I have grain sold at prices that making sure we're still going to be farming in the future. My thing is as of late, I'm having a hard time getting excited buying stuff. Not necessarily just anything. I mean, even thinking about buying a tractor or a combine or this or that. A lot of the emphasis and stuff that I look at buying anymore is it going to make me money? A tractor would most absolutely make me money. $70,000 and I could go buy a 4,400 hour 7810 axle mount duals and power quad. 70 grand. It's exactly what those things have been worth here lately. At 4,000 hours, that's probably a machine I'd be interested in. Power quad is something I would have liked growing up. Honestly, anymore, I'd rather have this. Just because if I get a 7810, it's going to be a roader. It's going to be eating pavement just as much as the 76. But I'm much more concerned about financial security than what I was when I first started farming, because that is the kid, the immaturity in me when you get to the end of the year and you make XYZ amount of dollars. And this is for those of you that are actually sticking around for the rest of the video and actually getting some real talk. But the kid in you is, I made XYZ amount of dollars, I'm going to spend XYZ amount of dollars and then another 5 grand. Or running on credit or financing. Anymore, I'd rather know that I got money, not even put away, because I hate putting money in a savings account, but you guys hear me about putting money into this or that, and I'm not going to sit and talk about my investments, but I've done more in the last 24, 36 months, not even 36 months, 24 months to secure my financial stability than I have pretty much my whole life, and the peace of mind I've gotten from that is huge. So largely it is just making sure you're not living from paycheck to paycheck, and for me that's even 10 times worse because my paychecks can go weekly to monthly to, well, I haven't seen any actual income come in since April, so I've been running on what I've had on hand. So in this, if I end up getting any of this hay sold, that's going to be the first income I'm going to have for a while. I would have had in a while. This is going to be something I got to fix too. The squeak is one thing. While I'm tearing it apart, I'll grease it all up again, but the airbag for my seat is leaking. I don't know if it's the airbag or if it's the fitting or if it's the hose. Unless the airbag is buku bucks, I'm probably going to replace all three, because that airbag is the very bottom part of this chair, and I am not looking forward to having to tear it open. 20 minutes is way too long of a video. I should really aim for this to be a Sunday video. Well, let's just face it, most of the people that are watching this channel, especially this long of a video, are my tried and true viewers that are still interested in watching. You guys want to watch the action shots, go to How Farms Work. I don't have it in me anymore. I've been in here since basically the sun came up, and you get the talking. That's what the rest of the story is supposed to be anyway. So you guys are watching the rest of the story. I think I'm done talking. I'm not going to do a video on tedding. I'd really have to have something to talk about. Try to turn you on when we're down here making this. Cross our fingers and hope for about 150 bales plus, because it could be such a thing where I sell about 100 or whatever I make off this field out of my shed and stack everything now into the shed and then make third cutting, and pretty much I'm out of room as far as where I can go with this stuff. That's part of the reason why I'm moving it while I have the opportunity to. Because I'd almost rather... wet spot. I'd rather move it while the hay has its color, its shape, its form, and not weathered. And third cut, because I have some foxtail coming in over on that field, that stuff will get wrapped 4 times just like everything else. Parked on the concrete over there. I mean, this will be September. And spread apart so it can breathe, so none of them are touching, so if it does rain on them, the rain can evaporate off. And that'll be the first stuff that I sell, probably in November or whenever I get time to move hay, which will probably be about December if things go, you know, as they should. So I got to get this done. Ryan has a bit more to go than I thought he would, but then we'll be out of here and within an hour. We need 2 disc binds, absolutely. We decided that. I'd rather have 2 disc binds and get everything on the ground and get it drying, as opposed to 2 balers. Because when it comes to making hay, you got to go over the same amount of ground with the disc bind regardless to cut everything, so you need maximum coverage. With the rig, we got the Rhino rig, 30 feet at a pass. It pulls all this stuff in great. And if this stuff is lighter, probably not going to get too dry on me if I don't have the feeding issues like I did with first cut, because it was too dry, didn't want to feed in. But if I have to come in on Tuesday versus Wednesday and get a bunch of stuff made, and I can baja across the field 7, 8, 9 miles an hour and keep that pickup full, maxed out, and making bales, I'm all for getting this stuff baled, hauled out, fertilized, sprayed, and let it grow. So my summers, that's my first week of August. My summer is kind of winding down already because it gives me about 3 weeks in August to kind of chillax and do whatever else. I don't know whether or not the wife really appreciates it or not. But. And then we'll be getting the combine out, and then once we get to about the 1st September, I'm going to start looking at the rest of that hay at my dad's and my brother's, and we'll start getting that stuff about the 1st week of September, so that way we have time to make it gradually and not cut it all at once like we did last year. Because that got hectic right now, and the large reason why we did that is we had 2 balers. We knew we had 2 balers, which in turn we only ended up baling with 1 baler most of the time anyway, because the deer, not the deer, I'm sorry, the 7600 disappointed me last year. Just call it what it is. It disappointed me. So all another reason to get another chore tractor. Reasons to do it, absolutely. It's just getting around to doing it. So that's enough. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Take it easy. Keep in touch. Like, comment, and subscribe if you guys care to support the channel. It means a lot. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.